So today we're going to look at a Technics RSM234 that was brought in by my client for a check over and make sure everything's up to snuff. So we're going to check that out, set the speed on it, and I'll do a demo on DBX recordings. But before we do that, we're going to look at my Resident Eagles. So this is an RSM234X. That's a Technics deck, and as you can see, it features DBX noise reduction in addition to Dolby B and C. So I'll first load up the tape and see whether it's going to move the tape at all. So tape transport works. Rewind and fast forward. We'll see if it plays. Rewind the tape back to the beginning here. Play. We'll see if this unit actually works. And I believe this tape was in might have been Dolby B. No noise reduction at all. So this deck actually works. Sounds a little slow from the get-go here. So these Technics decks like this had one of the nicest of the vacuum fluorescent display for the VU meters. Really nice looking. And to say this has DBX, so obviously if I turn on the DBX playing a non-DBX tape, it's going to sound absolutely awful. You know, see what I mean, right? Now with DBX, so you can record up to like plus 12 or so. It's incredible how much headroom you've got with it. Even adds the extra depth to the meter. Goes up to like plus 18. But I want to take the top off it and take a look inside it first, and then we'll check it out. It may just need the switches and stuff cleaned and the speed calibrated. So a couple screws on the side, and we'll be in like Flynn. Pull it back a bit and then lift off. I have the step up to this one. I have the RSM275, which is much more complex than this one. This one here is a belt drive using a conventional motor with a conventional speed control. The 275 is a quartz lock direct drive motor, but it's an ugly mechanism to work on like this. Really, a really complex mechanism. Fortunately, they don't have a lot of problems, but as you can see, that belt, I'm glad it doesn't need to be replaced, because that belt on this one is just a real pain in the ass to change. Let's check out the speed of this one, see if it's on speed or not. Yeah, I thought it sounded a little bit slow, and that's confirmed, right? This should be 440 hertz. So we are a little bit low in terms of the frequency, so let's go about fixing that. Motor speed adjustment is right in the back here. Of course, my screwdriver is not quite. I'm a little too high. I'm 466. We'll get it. we go. .440. Close enough for me. Back to the music tape. That sounds a bit better. Okay, let's do a recording, and I'm going to record on the back side of this tape. And we'll do a recording. We'll do it in both. We'll try the different noise reductions. I'll actually make a recording in DBX to show you how much I can push this thing, and more so to what listening to a DBX recorded tape sounds like if you don't have DBX equipment. What DBX is it's a sound companding noise reduction system that works on the entire spectrum. It doesn't just work on the high frequencies like Dolby does. Dolby B, of course, on the higher frequencies, it gives them a maximum of a 10 dB boost as the frequency increases. So it creates a curve like this with a 10 dB boost on the treble frequencies. And then on playback, it rolls off those frequencies, and in the same time, it will reduce your tape hiss by up to 10 dB. Dolby C does the same thing, but on a little bit wider group of frequencies. It starts more in the mid-range and into the treble frequencies and provides 20 dB of noise reduction. DBX, on the other hand, works on the entire spectrum. And basically what it does, it takes the dynamic range and it crushes it so that everything is being recorded in a very narrow dynamic range on the tape. Therefore, you can crank the levels up and record everything near maximum for full saturation. And it's got this very limited, instead of having a 40 dB signal to noise ratio, it'll give you an 80 dB signal to noise ratio, because everything that's quiet will get pushed up away from the noise, and everything that's really loud will get brought down, so that everything can be recorded in this high-end full saturation on the tape. And then on playback, it expands everything. And in the process of doing that, it drops the noise floor right out. Let's clean and demagnetize the head first. Actually, it doesn't look to be in too bad a shape. There's no wear. A little bit of wear, but nothing real serious. This one uses an MX head, which are not too bad. I'll just bring I guess I can't bring the heads up if if the door's not closed on this one. So we'll get in here, we'll just clean the heads. Clean the capstan and the pinch roller. On these ones, you pretty much have to take the door off to get at it, because you have to be able to close it and put the machine in play in order to engage the mechanism so that you can clean it, because it's pretty dirty, this machine. And I'm going to demagnetize it while I'm at it. Get the homemade demagnetizer and just get in there close to the head without touching it. Put the front cover back on. Just slides in place and drops down like that. We'll cue this thing up, reset the counter, and set our levels. One thing I have noticed is the control needs to be cleaned. We'll do that in a minute, but I'm going to set my record levels. I'm going to peak out here at probably about +8. Okay, let's re-cue this tape, and we'll record this again. Zero the counter. Now the heads are clean, demagnetized. We'll see what type of levels we get back, because I was getting a bit low level before. Using metal tape, I'd be able to push this way up to like beyond plus 12, up to close to probably to close to plus 18. But this not being a metal tape, I'm just gonna ride my levels, you know, try and keep it down. Try and keep it just below the red, or just getting into the red slightly. We should be able to get that back off the tape, off this type of tape. Now, of course, on the other end of the spectrum, DBX is so good that you can record, you know, really low. So if you've got a really low passage, when I crank this up, I'll crank this up on playback, and you won't hear the noise come up. You know, the noise floor, like if you tried to do this on a regular tape, you'd have so much hiss if you cranked it up. If I can turn it down even lower, you know, so now we're recording down at like, you know, minus 40 dB, which is ridiculous. If you tried to do that on a regular Dolby tape deck, the sound quality would be just horrible. But with DBX, you can get away with that, and I'll show you how this works. So we've recorded enough there. I'll just rewind this back, and we'll start this over again. And I'll crank up the volume on the amp when the level drops. So here, we'll play it back. My right channel appears to be a little bit low, which I wouldn't expect. Unless this tape's no good. Maybe the tape had a bit of a dropout there. It might have been, this is an old tape, so maybe the edge of the tape was a bit munched there because levels have come back here. If we try to play it without DBX, you'll hear it all compressed. Now I'm going to lower the level down here in a minute, and then you'll hear, I'll turn the amplifier up so you can hear. Okay, here's where I've lowered the level down. Turn the amp up. Now if I turn DBX off, listen what happens. Lower it down even lower. You see, now I'm down to like minus 40. I can crank the amp up. No hiss. I got the amp cranked all the way up. If I turn the DBX off, you can hear I was afraid that was going to happen. As you can hear, there's no noise. And if I just record silence, for example, if I put it into record here and just record nothing. So now we're recording silence. Doesn't matter whether that's on or off if I'm recording silence, but you'll hear, I'm going to play it back, and I'll crank the volume up, and we'll go through the different levels of noise reduction so you can hear the noise drop out to nothing. So if I rewind the tape here and play this back. Okay, so here's the silence. There's no noise reduction. You can still hear some hiss. You can still hear some hiss. And there's no hiss. No noise reduction. I'll show you this on the scope so you can see what it's doing, because I've got this hooked up to my scope so you'll see the noise. So first we'll play back the recording with no noise reduction at all, and you'll see all that noise. That's tape hiss. Dolby B reduces it. Dolby C reduces it more. DBX reduces it to that. No noise reduction. DBX noise reduction. It really does kill the noise. It's off now, right? That's just background noise. What you see there, that's just background noise that's being picked up, induction or something on my cables, because my amplifier is cranked as high as it can go. We're looking at the speaker outputs here, by the way. Oops. And of course, I get blown out if when the erased section runs out. Since this track's always been quite popular lately, let's just record the one that I've been using with vocals on it.
There's that old alarm again. Stand up, eyes shut, wishing I was sleeping in. Don't know how I do it, but somehow I do it every day. Just the same. Get dressed, still a mess. Shuffle through the same routine. White tee, blue jeans, looking at me. That old alarm again. I shut.
See, you can't play it back with any of those. You have to use.
Now I do it every day. Just the same. Get dressed, still a mess. Shuffle through the same routine. White tee, blue jeans, looking at.
I would say that this is a success, and the fellow that scored this, he's a long-time customer that brings me lots of stuff to work on, but I think he's found himself a really nice tape deck, and the addition of DBX noise reduction, whether he chooses to use it or not, because of course when you use it, you've kind of locked yourself into playing it back with DBX, but saying that, you can get the sound quality off of cassette with DBX is fantastic, and I mean, I've used DBX for many years. I bought the RSM234, and I've got a TAC deck, a 3-head TAC, which has got DBX. And back in the days when we were using cassettes in the car, I actually had a Panasonic car deck that has DBX. And I think I might even still have that car deck kicking around, because I think when I sold the car, I pulled the deck out and kept it because it was such a unique tape deck. And then never used it again because, of course, we moved on to CDs and mini discs and all the other fun formats that we had for the car. So DBX decks are kind of a rarity because not many companies used DBX. It was typically Technics used it, and TAC had some on their high-end decks, and Tascam and stuff. There were a few high-end decks that had it. I'm sure there's others, some of the more obscure brands. I'm sure I've missed a few of them here because I never really followed it much. The only decks that I had that had DBX were Techniques and the TAC. Those are the only decks I've owned with DBX on it, but I've always enjoyed it. I've got tons of tapes because I recorded back in the day when I was using cassettes. I must have recorded. I've got hundreds of mixed tapes where I was actually spinning vinyl into a mixer and making my own mixed tapes. I did them all in DBX because that was the big thing. I hated tape hiss. Tape hiss was one thing that drove me absolutely crazy. In fact, I even had a DBX encoder decoder that I used to use on reel-to-reel, and I've got that encoder decoder still because I've got a couple of reel-to-reel tapes that I encoded in DBX, and of course I have to haul that decoder out if I want to play those tapes back because it's completely incompatible. But anyway, I think this deck is good. I don't really need to do much to it. So I'm going to call it a day with this one. This unit is fixed. I'm going to send this one on its way, and we'll catch you in the next one real soon. Bye for now. So here's my resident eagles that you hear quite often. Of course, they're not going to be making any noise today. Maybe they will. We'll see. Here come a couple other birds.
couple more of them. There's all kinds of them around here.
Now, of course, the problem with these birds is they are more of an annoyance and a pest. Because, yes, they keep down the rodents. They're out here because there's farm fields around and they've got lots of food. And there's a composting facility just a few miles away, so there's lots of food. But the problem with having them around here is you got to keep your cats in the house and you got to keep your small dogs in, because these bloody things will fly down and just take your pet. And it's happened. They were just about a block away from me last year. A woman was out walking her little dog on the beach, and an eagle flew down right in front of her and just snatched her little dog, and that was the last she saw of it. So, I mean, they might be kind of cool to look at, but if you're a pet owner, you really got to keep an eye on it, because these things will just pick them off like they're not even there. They just swoop down, and that's it. Your cat or dog is gone. I might also add, you don't want to leave your convertible top down with any of these things around, or you might come back and find your upholstery is quite a mess, if you know what I mean. Because they leave a big mess behind. Glad they're not nesting in a tree in my yard.